Neighborhoods are always changing, but these days you can find dramatic changes in Roxbury, whether it's new development in Dudley Square or the high cost of housing. People take stock by reshuffling the old and new impressions and describing how they make them feel. That explains the new version of a video collage produced by Roxbury native Tessel Collins. It's called Entering Roxbury. To tell us about a free showing at the Dudley Branch Library are two collaborators in the project, Lolita Parker Jr. and René Dongo. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with Lolita. You've worked on some other video projects in Boston, keeping an eye out for neighborhood change. What did you see working on this?
Working on this, my first experiences in Roxbury go back to 1975. And I could not understand why the Roxbury of then looked like it did. And when I came back here in '93, my first employment was doing research on that very subject. You know, how Roxbury sort of fell into disrepair, at least that central part, you know, what's sometimes called Lower Roxbury. And it was just fascinating to me because I could stand on Washington Street and I could see the Prudential Center and I knew where I had just come from, and I'm like, why does this look like this? And it was, I used to say, you know, I used to call like downtown Boston the Sapphire City.
Right, yeah, no, it looked that different. René, what about your experience? You went to school in Roxbury, you come back some years later and you work on this. How is it different?
You know, Roxbury is a changing neighborhood, and it's filled with a lot of really great people. I've worked with a lot of MCs, making music videos around Roxbury, and I've went to Boston Latin Academy. So I've kind of seen the knit and grit of the education system and kind of the people who live there. So it was really nice to kind of go back and be able to just film and have Tessel be like the orchestra. Like, let's go film and document what Roxbury looks like.
We're going to show you an excerpt of that in just a moment here.
Growing community.
Growing community.
Home, comfortable, happy to be here.
Anything that bothers you about Roxbury?
Shootings, the killings. It's like a every weekend thing now around here.
Rosendale, Jamaica Plain, all of that is Roxbury.
I grew up here.
Overcrowded.
Growing community.
Growing community.
Home, comfortable, happy to be here.
Anything that bothers you about Roxbury?
Shootings, the killings. It's like a every weekend thing now around here.
Multicultural. I think that Roxbury is an amazing place to be. It has changed so much. I love everything about it. I love the transportation, I love the food, I love the people. I would have to move, I believe, because of the affordability. It's very expensive. For someone like me who goes to college and is young and has a full-time job, it's very expensive to live on your own here. Community.
Lolita Parker, coming back to the old and the new, you know, people who don't know Roxbury, they might focus on the negative, but people who do know it and who live there, they talk with great pride about the old stuff too.
Yes, Roxbury, when I first started doing research about Roxbury in 1993, one of the things I learned about was that, for example, at the Shaw House, which used to be in Roxbury, as early as 1935, Black history was being taught in Roxbury. And that just blew me away, because in many other parts of the country, it did not become a topic, a subject, until the mid-'70s. And so it really showed me how grounded that community was. And so when different forces come to buffet it, they're like, no, we know who we are, and you're not going to just push us around like that.
Right. What about your impressions, René? I mean, you went to school at Latin Academy, and you know, I can imagine you going there day in, day out, and maybe no one even mentions what's going on in the neighborhood or who was there. You know, Malcolm X lived a few blocks from that school.
It's true. I mean, I'm from Rosendale, so I mean, when I go into Roxbury, it's a different neighborhood. But at the same time, I think if you start learning, start listening to the people who live around there or who remember the history of it, you can see how deep the history of Roxbury is in Boston's history and kind of how they are really just one. And it's really cool to see that now that I'm a little older, I can go back and be like, oh yeah, this is historically, you know, very important to the identity of Boston.
Speaking of identity, Lolita, one of the other things that went on in this project, there were some still photos, and there's one that immediately lit up some recognition for me, the Mandela mural that was not so long ago painted off of Warren Street.
Yeah, I think that mural was a part of the mayor's initiative, Walsh's initiative, to bring more public art to the streets. It could be wrong, but that's what I think it was. And when I was driving down the street, it just stopped me in my tracks. It's just gorgeous, and it just is so present, and it spoke to me, and I know it speaks to others as they, you know, whiz up and down the street.
Yeah, Boston has those cultural icons that, you know, we have Malcolm X. Like, come on, like you have to embrace it. I feel like if we forget about that type of stuff, then we forget about what it means to be Bostonian. And
you know, like how cool is it? Who else has a boulevard called Malcolm X Boulevard?
Right.
Come on.
And he's still in that mural. It hasn't totally faded yet there near Dudley Square.
Yeah.
Lolita, what do you want people to do when they see this? Because this isn't just to show something and everybody walks away quietly when it's over.
I just, you know, anytime, this project was actually funded by the Fellows Athenaeum and the Friends of the Dudley branch of the Boston Public Library. And I think what we would like people to know is that, as one campaign said many years ago, Roxbury is rich. I mean, it's very almost cliche to say, you know, when you hear Roxbury in the news, it's associated with, you know, negative things. But the history, you know, both all the way back to the, you know, colonial days till now, there's just so much to learn and do and see and discover about Roxbury.
Yeah, René, I know one of the other things you could put in the mix, let's say, the outside of Roxbury Community College. I mean, so when you drive by there all the time, what's the big deal? But you know, go into the history. Well, why is that college there?
You know, and it's the first, you know, college dedicated to Black history, and it's really those things that influence not only what's happening now and to look back at the past, but to influence the future of what Roxbury can be and what it should be. And I think one of the things that we want people to take away when they watch this video is a sense of pride, a sense of belonging, and a sense of we can. And I think that's something that Tessel really instructed us to kind of like look and find this when we go out and film and photograph.
Right. Yeah, talk about that response, Lolita, because you know, for people who know Roxbury almost exclusively through, you know, breaking news stories about something bad happening, this is going to be a revelation. And
they're missing the best part of Roxbury. I mean, I know people who will like go around Roxbury, but maybe not so much anymore. I mean, if you go to Roxbury now, the bowling center is set to open next Tuesday, I believe it is. The refurbished Ferdinand building. And I just want to back up a minute. I'm going off track, but for example, Marcus Garvey had an office here in Roxbury. I was driving down the street the other day, and that location is just gone. And who will ever know that Marcus Garvey's headquarters was right there, you know, outside of Ruggles Street Station, unless, you know, people like Tessel, who was a native, and other people who you know, maybe were born in Boston but not from that neighborhood, just keep shining the spotlight on all the good things, and not good, all of the, well, we'll say good.
I mean, they're important. Honestly, that's what it is. It's you know, Maureen and Darius, who also filmed, they went and talked to people on the street, and they kind of got the perspective of, you know, 2014, 2015 Roxbury. And I think that kind of stuff will bring it back to looking back and go, this is the past, this is the present, and
And because while it is true that there are, there wouldn't be in the news if violent things didn't happen in Roxbury. Those things happen, but on any given day, 1,000 more positive things happen in that neighborhood than the one negative thing that makes the news.
We should mention, speaking of positive things, this is going to be shown for free April 9th, is it?
April 9th.
6 p.m.
At the the Boston Public Library, Dudley Branch.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us, Lolita Parker Jr. and René Dongo.
Thank you.